Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Joining me today is Claire Wu. She is a physiotherapist and psychology expert focused on helping people maximize their potential through conscious breathing. Having gone through trauma and cultural shock as a child, Claire suffers from acute anxiety disorder herself, a condition that is very common in older millennials. She has spent many years studying the psychology behind anxiety and stress and how it impacts our practical physical performance every single day. And she is now sharing her knowledge with audiences through workshops and her entrepreneurial initiative called Breathe into Peace. I hope through this conversation you can find some practical advice on how to manage your own anxiety. It's something we all suffer from in varied degrees throughout our messy and haphazard human lives. As always, I thank you guys for your support. If you are new to the podcast, kindly consider subscribing. If you are already subscribed, kindly leave us a comment and a like because your engagement with my videos is the only thing that helps this channel grow. Also, if you have not done so already, kindly check out all of our social media platforms for our short form content. All of the highlights from this conversation and all of my past conversations are going to be up there, so do check that out. But anyways, without further ado, this is my conversation with Claire Wu in The Gap. I was going through your LinkedIn, yesterday, and just to get an idea of what I wanted to talk to you about. So I noticed that when you were in Taiwan, you've done a bachelor's in physiotherapy,
Yes.
right? And then you had a minor in psychology.
Yes,
And then
that's
you went to
right.
Finland, and then you did a master's in sports biomechanics, right?
Yeah,
Sports
that's right,
science.
yes.
So that kind of makes me understand that why you got into this whole thing about anxiety and stress relief, because you understand the psychology of it,
Yes.
and then you also understand the physical aspect of it, and you can basically you have a good understanding of how the physical affects the emotional
Yeah, so I know the key that connects the body and the mind.
and mind.
So it's basically the vagus nerve. So that nerve actually connects the brain down to a lot of parts of the organs, including like the lungs, the heart, the intestines, sexual organs, the peripheral nerve. So that is actually very powerful because that informs that a lot of exercise can be done to help us connect more of heart to our mind. Yeah, it's fascinating. And now there's a lot of more and more research
Yeah.
that comes in to how heart rate variability can improve performance. Because high performance, so when we first do breath work and breathing exercise, usually done for athletes. So that's the first group that we work with athletes, high performance. They adjust their breath so then they can quickly come down their heart rate and then they can go up again. So they can drastically like change their heart rate so then they can perform really well. But then when they rest, they can come down
Okay.
with a very low heart rate. But then it shifted to mental health because in mental health, like we did a lot of breathing exercise. And again, like we see that there's a lot of dysfunctional breathing patterns in patients with chronic pain. And mental health patients have got anxiety and depression. And a lot of chronic pain patients do have depression and anxiety.
Okay.
So yeah, that's both sort of really related.
Yeah, how the physical affects the mind and how the
Yeah.
mind then translates to your physical ability to perform.
Yes, that's right.
My aim always is to try and understand where a person is coming from, right? So the contextualization of your whole life experience is a reflection of what you do for a
Yes.
living, right?
Yes.
So first off, I just want to get an idea of who Claire Wu is coming from Taiwan. Tell me a little bit about your early life. What was it like growing up in Taiwan?
Yeah, so so our family moved to the US actually when we were in elementary school.
Okay.
So I spent a few years in the US in Michigan, and that has really shifted my perspective about the world. I have a lot of culture shock during that time.
Yep.
And then that helps me embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Sure.
But also it helps me to have a different perspective of the Asian culture that I came from. Unfortunately, we didn't immigrate to the US. My parents decided to go back to Taiwan. So I went back to Taiwan during like junior high school.
Okay.
So year 7 all the way to 12. And then that's when things become really, really challenging, is because I try to integrate into the culture, the Asian culture, and a lot of it's about academic performance. It's not necessarily about your leisure or your extracurriculum. It's more like your academic performance in school. with your math, with your Asian study, with your chemistry, physics, and all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that time, I think my parents also become a little bit like, they were also really pressured because both my parents are PhDs. They're professors in university. So they have this very high pressure of I've got my 3 kids and all of them have to perform. Because I've got competition against my colleague, against my other moms and dads that we met at the wherever that they get gathered. So then they have this, they become a little bit abusive in the way that it can be physically, mentally, and emotionally. So that's when the domestic violence actually started. And then I found that it's rather common in Asian culture where you get beaten up when you don't answer a math question in 10 minutes. You get beaten up into your face, into your chest. You get emotionally and like mentally abusive, as in they would be threatening you, like, if you don't do this, I don't love you anymore. Or if you don't do what I say, I will not take you to this. Or if you hang out with kids that's not in grade A, then something bad will happen. Yeah. So it's that constant abuse that I think was a bit of a translation from the stress from the society, but also like the generation trauma that came from my family.
Yes.
Like, because my grandparents were quite like that as
strict.
well.
Yeah, I guess that's the generational trauma that coming from South Asia myself, that's something I've experienced myself as well. How I've justified that for my parents is that, like, obviously, look, abuse or like generational trauma that is being passed on to other generations, it can't be justified completely, right? But you can try to rationalize it on why it was done. And the rationale that I found usually was that because our parents grew up in a generation that was so highly pressurized and there was such high competition for survival. There were not enough jobs to go around for the amount of people out there. So you had to compete in this rat race, right? For survival. I guess that is where the stress came in, and plus not enough awareness about the emotional well-being. Yes.
I think that there's still a lot of stigma around mental health and around like youth education of how we brought up children, or how we speak to our kids, or how we educate them on certain topics. It's mostly like, whatever that they learn from their great grandparents or their parents, and then they pass it down. They repeat that because they've seen that, this has happened to me and I'm just going to repeat. And I'm still surviving, so I'm going to pass it on. And then but it was challenging because because I've been in the US. Me and my sister and my brother, we all been in the US, and we came back. We had that liberations and freedom where we experienced a Western culture
for 7 years.
For a few years, and going back home, it was like another culture shock where this is how kids are being treated. This is how performance being measured. There's nothing like anything outside of academic, like sports, like other art classes are forbidden, and you're not allowed to mingle with people with other lower grades and all of that. So for us, it was another culture shock. But at the same time, like we were kind of fighting. Like my brother gave up, but we were sort of fighting against. Like I was trying to call domestic violence hotline, and then my dad was like, if you call, like you have no parents, basically. So throughout age, I think 13 all the way to 18, I was going through that I think that 6 years was very challenging. And my sister was also the same. She fought really hard. Like she'll literally fight with my dad. They will fight, and then if my dad punches her, she will punch back. She literally will fight against it. She's not afraid to do that. And then I think that sort of set the tone where we both sort of just immigrate to another country in a way that we just like, I think I should just maybe explore other places, but also to leave whatever that's a bit painful and uncomfortable and a bit traumatic behind.
So going through life now, have you, looking back, were you able to mend fences with your parents as well? Or like, how's your relationship with your parents now?
I would say like I have brought up a couple times. So I left home at age 18, and then since then I just traveled and moved to Finland, Singapore, and then Australia, settled in Australia. I would say we've tried, but again, it was taken, if I mention what has happened in the past, or if this is what I was expected to be treated, or if I set a very clear boundary, sometimes it's not received well on their end. Because they are brought up in a way that it was very, very different. Mental health for them is really different. And for them, it's like if I motivate a person, if I want a person to succeed, the best way is to like talk down on them and then harass them or hit them or beat them up and all that kinds of things. That's not really allowed in our current society. But Yeah, I think I've tried.
Yeah.
And then in the sense that I understood that it's not received well.
Yeah.
And for me, it's really just to create a safe place and comfortable place for myself and to maintain that really strict boundaries. Yeah.
So going through all of that from age 13 to age 18, is that where you developed a sense of mental well-being? Like at what point did you realize that, okay, my mental health is something that I need to focus on, or it's taking a toll on my mental health?
Yeah, I think from age 12, so I have got general anxiety disorder, and I think I developed that during that period of time. You know, from the way that they talk to you, and then the belief that they pass on, and then the things that they did to create all these feelings of, you know, like you're not lovable, you're not enough, you are abandoned, all of this. And then I think it came to a point where, so I was age 15, I was thinking, oh, I should probably, so I read a lot of books on self-development, psychology. I remember the first book that I read in self-help was How to Stop Self-Sabotaging. Yeah.
Okay.
So that was quite heavy for a 15-year-old.
Yes.
But also it helped me to, came out of like having the ideas of, you know, suicide or to end my life or to just end all this suffering, like that's really helped. Yeah. I've gone through like really, really dark times. And I think the book and then putting myself through the therapy sessions in schools has really helped me as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very interesting because for any young adult going through, any teenager going through that phase, right? It's very delicate at that point because you can either go down, like you said, a very dark path. You can become suicidal. You can become self-loathing.
And you can take drugs, alcohol.
Yeah, exactly. That's one way to cope with it, right? You can either go down that path, or you can go down the path like yourself, that you can understand that, okay, this is what has been going on with me. This is the kind of trauma or abuse that I've been exposed to, and I can try to fix myself. But for a lot of teenagers, especially people who do not have the right kind of guidance on how to manage their anxiety or how to manage this kind of generational trauma, it's very easy. It's a slippery slope for them to actually go down the darker path.
Yes, I think, I think that's why a wellness program and mental health education is so important in school now. Like there's more and more awareness around that for teenagers to embark on a lot of mental wellness program or getting a lot of educations around mental health. It's because it's really hard to recognize and distinguish it when you're in it. Like when you're in it, it just feels like sometimes people describe it's like you're just in a dark well and then you don't have ways to get out.
Yes.
And then you could have access to, like a lot of teenagers, they'll have access to drugs, to alcohols, to other ways, or gangsters to be an outlet to numb themselves. But yeah, again, like it's all around having the resources and support that could actually is accessible and it's affordable for these people to gain access to. Okay, so coming back to your personal story, so you've gone through your teenage, and then at this point you've graduated with a bachelor's in sport in physiotherapy, right? Yeah. Is that something that you did by choice, that you wanted to do physiotherapy, or is that something that you just picked off, random? Because obviously, when you're growing up, you don't really have that much awareness of what you want to do with your life. Was it something like that? Yeah. So for me, I've always wanted to do psychology. Yeah. So from age 12 again. Because of my own personal journey, I've always wanted to do psychology. So I actually want to major in psychology. But then I had a very, my parents were really against me majoring in psychology because they think it's too much for people who's got a bit of psychiatric condition going on. Yeah. Yeah, so then they have actually, again, that threaten and a little bit of abuse with their language and be like, oh, you might not be able to find a job if you major in psychology, something as such. So then I end up picking physiotherapy because I had a couple of options in front of me. And then I look through the courses. I look at what I'm most drawn to. And I noticed one thing is the anatomy. Yes. Yeah, anatomy. So I really, anatomy, physiology. Yeah. So I was like, okay, that's sort of the things that I would like to learn more. Sure. And then in the sense I can still minor in my psychology. Yeah. Whereas, again, like physiotherapy study is very intense and hectic. You got to do internship in 4 domains. And it is actually really challenging you have to get a license exam as well. Yeah. It's the same, whichever country that you go to, the first thing you do is to change your license, go through the exams. Of course. In a way, I think when you're a medical professional, like a healthcare professional, you get to work anywhere basically in the world. Like once you sit through your exam, you can go anywhere. I just sort of never abandoned my love for mental health and psychology. I've always worked in similar fields, work with the patients that's in that domain, and I think that have really kind of shaped the foundation for my career. Yeah. So whenever I do my mental health workshops or nervous system workshops or even individual sessions, I always bring in the two. I always bring in the body-based exercise, anatomy, physiology, plus the techniques in psychology.
Combining the two.
Yeah, combining
for the
two,
optimum result.
Yeah. So it's not just one session. I'm there and you're talking to me about all your trauma and stories. No, it's just we really work through the trauma and then the pain, the emotional pain that's stored in the body, and then we work through that, and then whatever story that came out, whatever things that you want to say after the session. Sometimes clients don't say anything because it's too painful. They don't want to talk.
Yeah.
But sometimes they will talk if they want to talk. So it's not like it's just talk therapy. Like tell me about your stories and all of that. But it's more like you want to find that part that's in the body, because again, any pain or any trauma that's sort of imprint onto our amygdala, and that has a mapping parts in the body.
Yeah.
So it creates a pain in certain parts of the body.
Okay. That's very fascinating, because a lot of physiotherapists that I've known, or almost all of them, like they just focus on the physical aspect of it. Very few people, if any, actually combine the psychology and the physiology of it together. That's really fascinating, because it absolutely makes sense to me that unless you can resolve the physical trauma that is going inside of you, you cannot 100% resolve the physiological aspect of it. Yes. So
most physiotherapy, they work with the musculoskeletal. They only work on the physical aspect.
Yeah.
There are some, so out of 40,000 physiotherapists, around 400 work in the domain that I work in.
Sure.
So they usually has to do a separate study or another diploma in psychology.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then to take on further training onto that. Or then they just get exposed to mental health patients that they have to really quickly equip themselves with the skills and techniques to deal with patients that's in mental health.
Right.
Yeah.
So like you said, you always wanted to study psychology, so you always had a fascination with it. So then you eventually moved to Finland to pursue a master's degree, a postgraduate degree in sports science. Did you, first off, like I want to understand, what was Finland like, moving from that Taiwanese circumstance to now moving to Europe? What was the shift like? And then how did you find the sports psychology or the psychological aspect of the studies that you undertook over there?
Yes. So moving to Finland was really, I think it was quite healing. It was quite of a nourishing journey. So at that time, the Finnish school and my school has a sister program where they send their interns for physiotherapy to here, and then we get the chance to go over there as well, free of charge. So then, we took on the chance, me and my classmates, 4 of us, we took on the chance, and then we went to Finland to do our physiotherapy internship.
Sure.
And that's when I fell in love with Finland, because it's got a massive amount of forests and lakes and saunas.
Yes.
And
it was so far away from Taiwan.
It's so far away from everything. It was feeling like, okay, let's get away from all this. Like I think it's a bit of a getting away, escape, and to find another place to heal or to thrive. But I would say mostly healing in Finland, because I again went back to that multicultural environment. It was an international university with people from all over the world, from Europe, from China, from South America, from South Africa, everywhere in the world. And then, you get to understand different perspectives, understand different cultures. Yes. It's very diverse. The professors are really open-minded,
That was your first time in your life that you experienced the multiculturalism like that?
Yeah, so it was the second time after the US. That's the second time I was like, okay, I'm going back to that open, embracing, nurturing environment. Yep. And the professors are really open-minded, so they let you choose whatever topics that you want to work on.
Yep.
And it was fascinating because I think in Finland, like, people are really embracing nature. So people spend a lot of time in the forest and swimming in the lake and going to the sauna. And that's how you bond with other people. Like you go to the sauna and then you jump in the lake and then you do your barbecue and then you just chat it, and then that's how they build relationships in that way.
Yeah.
And that's where I sort of like, I think that closeness with water and nature really heal yourself. As in, like, you connected really much with who you are, and you connected a lot through the nature and to others. It helped me build a lot of body image confidence.
Okay.
Yeah. It also helped me build a lot of my, like, I wouldn't say self-worth, but it gives me a lot of a boost in my self-esteem in the way that it's so different from Asian culture. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because back in Asia, I think I was always this girl who's like really tall, really big, you know, like talk a lot, very opinionated.
Yes.
And then the Asian boys are all very afraid of me. Yeah. So when there, man, all the European boys were like, whoa, they were like chasing after me. And I'm like, whoa, this is fascinating. I'm hanging out with boys from Italy, Spain, you know, France and Finland. And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Because they really appreciate that quality in a woman.
In a woman.
Whereas in Asia, it's very different. So I was experiencing all this boost of confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Asian cultures, like, again, this is part of the evolution of societies, the evolution of cultures, is that an outspoken woman is troublesome in Asian cultures.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be that way, but it's just it's not so much about the woman speaking out. It's so much more about the norms and the old values being challenged. That is the problem.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's a different
topic.
That's a different topic in itself.
Absolutely, yeah.
So okay, so how much time do you spend in Finland?
I spent around 3 years in Finland. Yeah.
How's the food? How's the food in Finland?
Finland.
Like, I'm just curious.
Finnish food is a lot of bread, a lot of salmon.
Okay.
Salmon fish, because they're very close to Norway, and then they farm a lot of salmon. And also reindeer meat.
Reindeer meat?
Yeah, reindeer meat.
How's reindeer?
It's very good. It's very
Is
good.
it?
Yeah. I really enjoyed it. Really like. Actually, I was surprised that Finnish food. It's bland, but it's just really healthy.
Okay.
In a way that most of their vegetables and fruits are imported from because it's very cold, right?
Yeah, it's very cold.
Because our latitude is like 63.5 degrees. Like it gets down to minus 20 in winter time. But the food, because they are really wealthy, so then they get to import a lot of food from Italy, from Spain, from Germany.
Okay, so all the best vegetables. Sources.
Yeah, so we have all the vegetables, fruits in the winter coming from the southern of Europe.
Sure.
And then the meat, they do grow, they do farm cows and pigs and also fish, salmons. So I ate a lot of salmons because it was really cheap.
Interesting.
There, it was like a whole salmon was only 10 euros.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm just eating salmon every day.
Yeah. Good source of healthy fats.
Good source of healthy fats, yeah.
So winding up in Finland, now you're done with Finland. Did you... Like, what was the option for you at that point? Did you, like, the option would have been to go back to Taiwan, but you wouldn't have wanted to go back to Taiwan at that point?
Yeah. So I thought, actually when I left Taiwan to Finland, I thought I always want to go back. I thought, my goal is to open my clinic, make my parents proud and all that sort of Asian things.
Asian things.
And then the reality is, after you experience a lot of liberation and freedom, you're like, man, I just want to stay overseas for the rest of my life because this is so nice. Get to eat salmon every day, get to play with the boys from all countries. And you're like,
this is nice.
And you're highly valued. So you're like, okay, I'm just going to look at all the options that I have. So I send resume to US, to America, to Australia, to New Zealand, to Dubai, to Singapore. So I literally choose this 5 countries. And then I send all my resume. And I happened to get the opportunity to work in Singapore. Yeah.
In Singapore, okay.
Yeah. So my first choice was Dubai, but
of course,
because what I've heard about Dubai. But again, life happens, and then you just sometimes you get better than what you have asked for. So
Singapore's not that bad either. I mean, to have the ability to work and live in Singapore, it's
So I would say Singapore was sort of like the foundation for me to get into Australia.
Yeah, and what I found in Singapore is that it's very competitive.
Yes.
The Singapore landscape is very competitive, and you get to meet a lot of very highly motivated and very driven people in Singapore. And that really, if you hang around with these kind of people, you eventually become highly motivated and driven yourself. Yes. So around that time, how much time did you spend in Singapore?
So Singapore was around 3 years as well. So I went to Singapore first as a Pilates teacher, so that I get to teach exercise at in the studio. It's like a movement clinic for my high-end clients. And then later I changed I need to there's always a period where you have to wait, go to the exam, change your license to physiotherapy. So I think Singapore is where I really hone in my skills in assessing, treating, and helping patients and clients. And I have a lot of high-end clients at the time because most people who can sort of afford to do exercise or physiotherapy were those executives and managers from the finance or law services in Singapore. And yeah, they are really easygoing. Like they are interesting in the way that they sometimes want the session to be in Chinese because they can practice their skills. So then when they have Chinese client, they can speak Chinese. So, Singaporean, they speak Singlish, a mix of all the other languages. And then,
How many languages can you speak?
I speak 4.
4?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that would be
English, Mandarin, Finnish, and Taiwanese dialect. Yeah.
So, and you're completely fluent in Finnish as well?
I am losing it now. So I'm slowly losing it. It's not a common language, but
it's not.
It's a fascinating language. Like the movie The Lord of the Rings. You would know when the elf, when they speak, that's part of it. They use the Finnish language.
Really?
Yeah, in the elf's language. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So then with all of this honing in your skills in Singapore and developing that acumen, I believe your business acumen would have developed while you were in Singapore then.
Yes, that's right. So I think at that time my boss in Singapore, he's actually Australian, but he moved to Singapore a long time ago. And then he identified that I'm quite good with sales. He was like, oh, you just know how to sell to doctors and clinics and hospitals. So he was like, I think you should probably do more of that. Yeah. And I actually enjoy it because when I'm in the clinics, I am just focusing on one person at this one time. And I'm just in this room and this studio, even though I can overlook the beautiful, skyscraper and everything, landscape in Singapore. But I'm like, I do enjoy running around in the city and door knocking actually in hospital to the doctors as to the specialists. Yeah. So I found that drive really early on. And then because the thing with therapy is that you always kind of know what outcome you're going to expect because you've done your training, you follow the guidelines, and then it just sometimes the challenge can be the patients can be a bit difficult or they're non-compliant. But I found that with sales and business development, like you never know what the outcome's going to be. And then that really fascinates me. I think that the unknown and uncertainty is what drives me in sales. Yeah.
And is that because like you said, your boss was from Australia.
Yes.
Did that then open up the door for you to come into Australia then after Singapore?
Yeah, that was actually a rather interesting question because actually in Singapore, there's a lot of Australian expats. I have a lot of clients that's Australian, but it was more like not necessarily my boss. It was more like I took a winter holiday in Melbourne.
Okay.
And then I get a chance to look at the Great Ocean Road and then the kangaroos and then the koalas. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah. I'm going to move on from Singapore because Singapore is tiny, as we all know. It's like the size of Sydney of a country. So I was like, okay, I think now it's time to move on. And then let's move to Australia.
Wow. Yeah. Right. And at this point, did you have any family with you or was it just by...
just me. Just by myself. Yeah. So it's always been just me.
Yep.
As again, I'm not that close. Like I do talk to my parents, but I only see them once a year.
Sure.
Because we have very different values.
Sure.
We have different perspective on things. So I only see them once a year. I mean, my parents travel quite a bit as well, but they usually travel because my dad's work, he would go to Korea or India or Dubai. Like he would look at, the boats and marines because he specializes in engines in big ships and boats. Yeah.
Fascinating.
But I never travel with them because we always end up in the fight. So I just say, you guys go have fun and I'm going to do my own thing.
Yeah,
and
let's just keep a civil distance.
Yeah, let's do a distance. And then we see each other once a year, like for a week. And then that's enough.
Interesting. So then you made the move to Sydney.
Yes, from Melbourne.
So you went to Melbourne first?
Yes, I was in Melbourne for 5 years. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, you'd be the right person to tell me this. Like between Sydney and Melbourne, what do you prefer?
Of course, Sydney.
Of course. Why do you think?
I think when I first went to Melbourne, because it was such a contrast to Singapore. So it was like really big, vast land and very cold and 4 seasons in a day, where Singapore is the same season in a day, right? So I was very inspired and I fell in love with Melbourne. Yeah. But then after you experience that a while, you're like, I think this is quite dramatic. Like, and then as I start picking up swimming, so I start swimming in the ocean during the lockdown because it was really challenging. I think a lot of us get a little bit depressed and develop a little bit more anxiety. And then we started to swim in the ocean. So the more I get in touch with the ocean, the more I'm like, I need to swim in better oceans and better beaches.
Yes.
And that's when I was visiting clients actually in Sydney, and I was like, oh, I never experienced such beautiful ocean and beaches. Yeah, you never know, because I thought I was going to settle in Melbourne.
Yeah.
But when I visited Sydney, I was like, man, I should have known this existed a few years ago. Yeah, I just never really experienced that when I first came to Sydney. Yeah.
You can't beat the weather in Sydney though.
Yeah, that's true.
Like Melbourne's too cold, and more Melbourne's really unpredictable. Brisbane's too hot, too sticky.
Yeah, that's true.
I think Sydney's the best balance.
Sydney's a good balance. Yeah.
I love Sydney.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you're in Sydney, and now eventually the work that you're doing with your initiative, Breathe into Peace. I see now, knowing all of your history, that how all of that ties in, like with your past experience with your family, and then understanding psychology, wanting to do physiotherapy, all of that, and then coming into Sydney. The angle that I want to understand, because this podcast is mainly targeted towards immigrants, and particularly immigrants like myself coming from South Asia or from Asian backgrounds like yourself, people who are carrying a huge amount of generational trauma, people who are carrying a huge amount of expectations from family back home, or just the amount of responsibility that might be on them. A lot of immigrants come to Australia as students, so they have the added burden of trying to balance their degree with doing an odd job, trying to balance the money situation, and with the cost of living crisis that we're going through right now, and the lockdowns that we went through. I thought that this would be a very good idea to talk to you about this, because a lot of people went through extreme amounts of stress, extreme amounts of anxiety during that point. So what can you say about being an immigrant yourself? What can you tell me about the kind of anxiety or the kind of stress that people go through as immigrants, as young immigrants in a new country?
I think, I've been moving around across a lot of countries, and some of them I might just be like on my work visa or student visa. And I would say that stress of uncertainty.
Yes.
And of like ambiguous identity would be the most challenging part, because you kind of, I think I've never stayed in one country for a very long time except for Australia, but I think a lot of your listeners who are coming to Australia to study and then to get a work visa and then permanent residency and eventually citizenship, I've gone through that journey myself, and I understand that there's a lot of wait time.
Yes.
And a lot of changes in regulation. Sometimes it can be really uncomfortable. But during that time, I always sort of maintain a routine of my meditations and breath work, and that has really helped me, because I sort of believe that whatever's meant for me is going to come to me, that I don't have to like work really hard or like chase it really hard. Of course, I've done what I can to immigrate to Australia. But one thing I would say is like really connecting to your breath on the day to day is so important. That will help you decrease half of the stress.
Yes. I feel that's something that not a lot of people consciously make an effort for, because everybody's in such a hurry to get somewhere, to get something done, to make money, to maximize their day. People forget to breathe properly. People forget to eat healthy. People forget to take care of their own body and their own mental health. And that kind of results in eventually, like it won't affect you in 1 day or 2 days or a week, but eventually after months of going through that same process, it will wear you down.
Yes.
So what do you think, like in terms of, like you work with clients all the time going through anxiety and stress, and the added stigma of not talking about mental health in Asian cultures. What is like some kind of practical advice that you can share with any new immigrants who might be coming into Australia, that this is something that you need to focus on? These are some kind of practical steps that you can take.
Well, I think there's now a lot of support group out there that support people's mental health, like even some hiking group even some meetup groups that they are people who just there to talk about their struggles or their challenges. So finding those group on meetups, finding those group on Facebook might be really helpful because you'll be surprised that actually everyone struggle.
Yes.
Not just you struggle. So when you feel like you're alone, then it adds up the stress. But then when you realize this is a common human experience, it takes away that pressure, and then it takes away that stigma as well.
Yeah.
That's one thing, is to find the group, find the tribe, find the community that will support you, that are suffering or experiencing similar situations. The second one is, again, like really to focus on your breath. So this is actually one breathing techniques I like to bring to your audiences. It's called straw breathing. So you can practice with me if you want.
Yeah, sure.
So we're just breathing in through the nose, and then we breathe out through our mouth, like we're blowing a candle for 8 seconds.
Okay. You have to blow out for 8 seconds.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So let's do it maybe 3 times here. So just breathing through your nose and out through your mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Again, breathing into your nose. And exhale out through your mouth. 2, 3, 4. Like you're blowing a candle. 6, 7, 8. One more here. Breathing into your nose. And out through your mouth. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And how are you feeling, Thosan?
Yeah, you like, it does give, it kind of puts your mind at a high, with the amount of oxygen that might, I try to understand this in terms of science of how this actually works. It does calm you down. So it's the influx of oxygen that you're taking into your body, rushing into your brain, that is then calming your mind down. Like, is that the physiology?
It's actually the opposite. Yeah, it's actually
the opposite.
Yeah.
Is it?
So in physiology, it's the exhalation. So when you exhale for a very long time, it stimulates your vagus nerve, and that's part of your brainstem. So when you have a lot of carbon dioxide, it will actually stimulate your brain to take a deep breath.
Okay.
So the breathing in is very natural. It's the breathing out that needs conscious effort here.
Okay.
So the longer, the more consistent, slower you can breathe out, the better your breathing in will be.
Really? I know. I thought it was the breathing in part that is more important.
No. The breathing in is a natural part of being human. So as part of our physiology, we take deep breaths every hour around 10 times.
Sure.
It's a natural body response. But it's because now people don't really breathe out really slow and long. People is always like, like huffing and puffing. Yeah. And that's what makes breathing in really hard, because you don't have that long, slow exhalations.
Yeah. Okay. So the buildup of the carbon dioxide is basically then.
Yeah, that's the one that will stimulate the brainstem and tell your body to, take a deep breath now.
Interesting. Fascinating. Well, okay. What other techniques do you work with, like in terms of breathing, apart from this
the slow breathing?
This one?
Yeah. So I think that's why. Aside from this one, we've got like step breathing, we've got conscious connect breathing, we've got bee breathing, like we've got close to 100 techniques.
Wow. Yeah.
So breathwork is a spectrum. Just like mental health, breathwork is a spectrum. It's finding, so there's breathing techniques that energize you, and there's breathing techniques that calms you.
Okay.
So in between here, there's all the spectrum of the type of breathing, with the rate, with the speed, with the intensity, and then you shift between that. So depending on clients' focus, for example, if they've got depression, they need more energy, I'll give them more like a fire breathing, really giving them energy. But if they are like trauma healing, it's more conscious connect breathing that's produce a little bit like an effect from psychedelic that gets them into an altered state.
Really?
Yeah, and then that helps them find the root cause of their trauma.
You can actually do that with breathing.
Yes, it's fascinating.
Very fascinating.
Yeah. When I first encountered breath work, it literally was like, it was just one session of the conscious connect breathing, and I'm like I just connect to my inner child, to the root cause of the trauma really quickly.
So where does all of this breathwork knowledge come from? Is it ancient Asian techniques of breathing that this comes from? Where does it stem from, like in terms of history-wise?
Yeah, history-wise, breathwork has been around for a very long time. So it's been in the Egyptian culture, the Romans culture, and the Hindu culture as well. Yep. So you've got the alternate nostril breathing, you've got the step breathing, straw breathing. But again, I think modern days, we have actually adjusted breathing techniques based on what is actually needed for the clients. So now the modern breath work, it's more of a mix of multiple modality and coming together, and based on the purpose of the clients, and then you you modify the breathwork techniques to the person. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll give you a practical example, right? Like I'll give you my example.
Yeah.
I'm somebody who has a full-time job, Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
Right. I work 10 hours a day, and then you go home, and then you've got wife and kids, and then you've got like all of the home chores that you have to do, and especially with young kids, they demand time for themselves as well. So I feel that my life, for a lot of for 7 days a week, is just constantly on the move.
Yeah.
It's go. It's an infinite to-do list that never finishes, right? And in between that, I noticed that the only time I can actually sometimes relax is when it's actually just literally time to go to bed, and you literally just get on the bed and you pass out.
Yeah. So you don't have anything in between. You don't have. You're not. So that means your nervous system stays always constantly in this fight and flight.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
You're not in the connected state or more of a calm state or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that is the case with a lot of immigrants, a lot of younger immigrants who come into Australia or any other country who are trying to make a life for themselves.
Yes,
it's always the hustle. The hustle is constantly on.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So in that case, like what kind of breathing technique do you think, or what kind of meditation, or what is needed to balance yourself out if your nervous system is constantly on the go?
Yeah, so if you're constantly in fight or flight, so one thing in the vagus nerve of the polyvagal theory is there are 3 states.
Yep.
You have the fight or flight, which most of you guys are constantly on. You have the shutdown, which is freeze and shut down. You know, sometimes people, when they get triggered, they don't do anything.
Yeah.
They shut down. They just close off.
Yeah.
They block off everyone.
Yeah.
There are people like that.
Yep.
The third part is to be connected and to be safe and secure. So you want to be in this state as much as you can.
The third one.
Yeah, the third one. So using your breath to do that, the slow breathing was quite possible to get there.
Yeah.
And then in fact, that's how we developed the necklace as well.
Sure.
So our breathing necklace, which is pattern awarded, is designed in a way to slow down the breathing.
Wow.
Yeah, so it almost acts as a token. So when you wear it, you kind of know, okay, this is here, and I'm getting a little bit anxious and stressed, and then I can breathe out through it. It doesn't make any sound.
Yeah.
It's not like come and save me. You just slow down your breathing, really slow, long, and consistent.
Sure.
And then repeat that a couple times. Yeah, that could actually help one to calm down. Yeah,
Right.
because that's what we found in a lot of people is that they don't have time, they don't have the energy, they don't have a separate schedule to do something that's really major.
Yeah.
And that's where the breath work comes in, because only 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and in between the days you can do it. First thing in the morning when you get out of bed, you can do it right before your lunch, and you can do it when you finish your work.
Okay.
And just to take that time, 5-10 minutes to bring in some of the connectedness, peace to yourself before you go back home, dealing with your kids or meeting other demands.
Nice.
So it's finding pockets of time. It's not like, I got a 1 hour breath or 1 hour yoga, 1 hour this to get off. Okay, some people do that. They will literally
Compartmentalize everything.
Yeah, every day. But again, like breath work, it's not something you need to do for a long period of time. It's just that 5-10 minutes pocket. You find it throughout your day. Let's say 3 times a day, and then it will help to reset the nervous system. Because in a way that you also want to avoid being always on fight and flight the whole time, because it can eventually lead to burnout, chronic fatigue, and chronic anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah, because your body has that vagal brake, which is part of the vagus nerve that connects to your heart. So this is your heart. That is the vagal brake, connect from the brain. So ideally, after each stress response, this brake will comes in, and then it will tell your heart to slow down. Yeah, so then you will have a really healthy stress response.
Okay.
But if you're constantly on, this brake doesn't work. In the end, you end up with chronic fatigue and burnout.
Right.
Got to be really careful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, it's like you feel like you don't have control over it. Like by finding those pockets of time, like you said, like obviously you can make time, you can make 5-10 minutes if you try to, but it's just that on a day-to-day basis, you feel like I am on this fight and flight mode, but
Because I'm used to it.
I'm used to it. Like I don't have.
Because I'm comfortable with fight and
I've
flight.
become comfortable with it.
Yes.
Yeah, but like you said, and like I said previously, eventually after months of going through that, it will tear you down.
You will.
It will have an impact on your health.
So you will find your tough time for getting some water and going to the toilet. You can utilize those time.
Yeah.
To practice your breath.
Your breathing.
Start off.
Yeah. I also checked out the website for Breathe Into Peace and the necklaces that you guys have made. So this is your own patented design, is it?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
How did you come up with this?
So, well, I've struggled with anxiety from a very young age. So during the course of my healing, I created this pendant, triangular pendant, that I can use discreetly to breathe in and out and to calm my nervous system. I had an idea of, because I do breath work, but still I found myself forgetting to do it. If I'm really in a rush and I'm in the, for me it's traffic or, crowd, or something that's really urgent that gets me into that fight or flight. So then I need something that I can wear and to use it day to day. Yeah, so that's when the idea came out. And because I love the triangle symbol very much, it's like for holistic health, your spirit strength, and like part of holistic health is combining your strength, breath, and spirit. So it's got that really solid symbol.
Right.
Yeah.
And it looks really nice as well. Like it's very inconspicuous. The first time I saw it on your website, I wasn't able to tell that it was a breathing device.
Yes.
And that makes it very practical. Like somebody, like it you can wear it as a fashion statement, and it doesn't really give away the idea of what it's actually for.
Yes. I think when we interview because we develop this with our customers as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of them, even though they have anxiety or they are stressed out, they still want to look good. And then, they just want to use it, secretly so nobody knows. And it, of course, we want to have both functionality, like the aesthetic and then, helping to breathe. So that's how we came up with the idea.
Interesting. I'll post a link to the Breathe Into Pieces website, and if anybody's interested in these pendants as well, it should be appearing on the screen right now. I'll post a link in the description for this podcast as well. So if anybody's interested, do check that out. I think it's a very fascinating idea on how you can practically, regulate your breath. And it kind of, like if something is around you, like a pendant or something, it kind of consciously reminds you as well after a little bit that I need to do it.
So it's almost like a token.
Yeah, exactly.
That you can. It's like a reminder.
Exactly.
To do a pause and then a breathing exercise when you are triggered.
What else do you work on? Like, what's the journal about? What's everything else that you guys work on?
So we just launched this journal this year, and it's a collaboration with the award-winning Aboriginal artist.
Sure.
So I'm really fascinated by the Aboriginal art.
Yes, and I see that.
That's why we collaborate with Gary Purchase. He's quite famous in Sydney. And his artwork is really a symbol of breakthrough to the challenges, because the whales is his spirit animal.
Okay.
And it's like dancing in the moonlight, jumping off the water, like breaking through difficulties and challenges. And I think that's what we want the journal to be, is that it's got like 190 pages of prompts.
Okay.
Guided prompts that about your worries, about your triggers, about activities, about your thoughts. There's different techniques. So there's multiple techniques inside, and it gets harder and harder. It was very easy at the start, but it gets a bit harder. So it helps you to let go of your judgment, to understand your emotions, to understand why you do something. And then it's got a couple quotes as well to inspire you. But overall, it's helping you to accept and forgive things that have happened. So overall, it's a journal that we hope to help people to observe themselves without judging themselves.
Interesting. And recently what I found is over the past couple of years, journaling is something that has come back into trend a lot lately. A lot of people have now kind of rediscovered, because I'm talking about the time before the internet. People used to journal a lot. You hear that within our parents' generation or our grandparents' generation. People used to journal or write their personal diaries a lot. And what you now realize is that was kind of a way for you to vent out all of the frustrations and all of, everything that is going on in your life. It's an outlet, basically.
Yes, it's an outlet. So I started journaling when I was like 12 as well, because I was going through a lot.
Yep.
So again, that culture shock moving from US back to Taiwan.
Yeah.
And then, so on average, I wrote about 4 or 5 journals a year.
Really?
This is very close to my heart, because I've done journaling and it really, really helped me.
Yeah.
Like, I actually have to throw out my journal because it's very dark and heavy, especially when you go through like depression and anxiety. Everything was very dark and heavy, and then when you really don't want to reread your own journal, like ideally you should throw them out. Like what we recommend is
years later you open up your journal, you're like, oh my god, what was I going through?
Yeah, why would I want my parents dead? Well, why would I want to kill all of them? Back then I was like, because you're full of anger and a lot of stress. So I think in a way that. But a lot of blocks for people is that they don't want to journal because they're afraid that people will see this and they're afraid that what they will come out under their pen. Yeah.
That's fair that people might read it.
Yeah.
But I guess it's also a fact that people are afraid to confront those emotions.
That's right. So that's why we create this one, because it's got prompts.
Yeah.
First of all, it's got prompts and questions, so you don't have to write everything in your mind.
Yeah.
Because I know for some of you, like writing everything out from your mind is very comfortable. You're not too stressed and worried about what's going to come out.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, that is very challenging.
It is.
Because they're so afraid to look at their thoughts. I have this thought that I want to murder this person, or I have this thought that I want to, I feel so ashamed of this problem. I'm so guilty of this. I'm too upset about this. I'm not happy with myself and all of that. Yeah. But sometimes when you write it, it creates a distance between you and your thoughts.
Yes.
So you recognize that thought is not you. It's just your thoughts.
True.
And then we have more than 80,000 thoughts a day. Like thoughts just pop in and out. It's just like clouds. So when you make that distance, actually it just justify I have these thoughts that I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'm ashamed of this, but they're just thoughts. So it helps you create the distance, it helps you to pause, and it helps you to go down that rabbit hole.
And it helps you to perhaps also objectively assess your thoughts. Objectively.
Yes, that's
objectively.
right.
You like you said, you separate the thought from your own self. I see, like, this is something I discovered for myself, right? Sometimes you have a negative thought. Somebody cut you off in traffic. Somebody at work treated you wrongly, or like even your own personal relationships with your parents, your siblings, your partner, your kids, even, right? And you have the worst thoughts, right? Like, I wish I wasn't born. I wish I wasn't part of this family. I wish I wasn't in this relationship, etc., etc. People go through 1,000 thoughts, right? Yes. Most of the time, what people do is that people have this thought in their mind and they become so ashamed and so guilty of having that thought that they're not able to separate themselves from that thought and analyze that, okay, I had that thought. Let's dig a little bit deeper of where the root of that thought is coming from.
Yeah.
Where the root of that dissatisfaction or that emotion is coming from. And unless you actually dig down and you go down to the source of it, you won't be able to recognize what the issue actually is.
Yeah, and a lot of it might not be coming from you, who you are as a person.
Exactly.
It might come from society, it might come from your parents, it might come from someone else.
You might just be having a bad day. In that moment,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So journaling, I believe
journaling is very powerful.
I tried getting into journaling. I tried getting into like writing a diary when I was younger. It's just that my handwriting is so slow. by the time I finish a sentence, the thought's already gone past. So I did try typing it out on laptop. I feel that's much faster, much quicker for me. Some people also do it in an audio way, they record their thoughts.
Yeah, they record their thoughts
on audio. Yes. But yeah, I guess journaling, and especially the way you guys have set it up, like it has prompts in it, so it kind of guides you on how.
Yes, it guides you on
how to think.
Yeah, how to think, and it guides you on your worries, your triggers, your feelings, and all of that.
Yeah,
not just and help you not to judge yourself. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. So is the journal available online as well?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I'll post a link for that one as well in the description.
Yeah, so the journal is available, and then both of them actually come under a package. So if anyone wants to, it's coming to this Breathe Into Peace package. So something you can do on your day to day.
Sure.
Yeah. Sure.
So with yourself, with Breathe Into Peace, like is it mostly like workshops that you're normally busy with?
Yeah, so we have workshops, and we've got private client as well. The workshop that we're doing mostly is through nervous system regulations, like nervous system workshops. And we've done through with corporate wellness and then with non-for-profit as well. We're looking to go into schools, so hopefully to bring in those really practical techniques to kids and teenagers, because again, like from my own journey, I can see that that's when it developed.
Yes.
And that's where it actually needs the most care.
Yes.
So we're hoping to do more of that. I do business workshops as well. It's fascinating because a lot of business performance, high performance and productivity is associated with nervous system regulations as well.
Yeah,
so they're both related.
Yeah. And also, like with high performing individuals at work, this is something that doesn't get talked about a lot. People who are usually very high performing in high executive roles also suffer from a lot of like burnout, and also suffer from a lot of negligence on their own emotional part.
Yes. I think a lot of time people who are high performance, if they're not mindful of high performance, they can be that fight and flight all the way, and there's no a switch off or because ideally you want to structure your day where you have some time where you're within your comfort zone, because the more you're out of it, your vagal brake again doesn't work. So again, this brake needs to come in, slow down your heart rate, slow down all the cortisol level, all the adrenaline, and then help your body to relax. That's a full response of stress. But if they don't, they will constantly be on very high edge, very much of a fight and flight state, and eventually again burnout and fatigue and chronic anxiety will develop.
Interesting.
So that's really important. So we do that, and it's quite exciting, because I feel like now I think people are more drawn towards practical practices every day, rather than like a theory, a theory trying to understand a problem or trying to understand my behavior. I think now people are drawn to that, something that I can use right now, and I can do it on the day to day. And again, mental health is a continuous practice. It's not like I do it one day, I'm fine for the rest of my life. It's an ongoing daily practice, just like exercise and diet.
Have you ever considered like making a YouTube page or something like that? Because I say that, like I just had this thought in my mind, because you're pretty confident in the knowledge that you share, and your advice is pretty practical. Like you could make a very successful YouTube channel out of this.
I just don't have the time. At the moment, I'm working on again a couple of workshops, and then my book as well. So I'm working on my book.
Okay. Well, what's the book about?
It's about trauma healing.
Okay.
It's about all this journey that you've asked me about, and then it's about like, going through how do I heal each traumatic events, on body image, on abandonment, on not good enough, on self-love, all of that. How do I do that? Because I found a lot of people ask me about my stories and experiences. And they're very curious on like, how do you actually heal something that can be really hurtful? Like when you were told like, I won't love you anymore when you're very young, like it's actually really hurtful. So people are really curious, like, what did you do to build back your confidence and self-esteem and self-worth?
I think the more, like, there are two challenges to it. One is to recognize that there is a problem. To recognize the awareness that there is a problem that exists. That if somebody has a body image issue, if somebody has self-esteem issues, if somebody is going through, is underconfident or anything like that, they need to realize that there is something within their past that is kind of triggering that response from themselves. Somebody might have a body image issue, and that might be linked to their parents, or during their younger years, somebody telling them that they were not good enough or they don't look good. So the first part is recognizing that there is a problem, and then the second part is trying to overcome that. Hopefully when your book is out, maybe we can have you on for another chat, and we can tackle those problems then.
That'll be fascinating, because I think it's not just yourself, it's a commonly shared problem.
It's a very common, especially in Asian societies, in South Asian societies, No,
but it's the same worldwide, because when I traveled to Finland, like when I was in Finland, I was telling people about my trauma, and I was sharing my stories, and then you realize there are people that are similar.
You think?
And they're Finns, like they have struggled with body image, and self-worth, and you'll be surprised. Like it's not just a certain ethnicities or certain age range or background of people. Like maybe we are more highly likely to have those, but then again, it's a commonly shared human experiences. So you will find that actually people are quite similar in some way or another. If they're brought up in a certain way, or if they are having to go through similar struggle, they come out somewhat similar.
I guess what you're saying is right, that we're more likely to have it, but it's a common thing. It's common among all human beings. True. Fascinating. I'll look forward to that talk. I'll hopefully have you on again for
Thank
that.
you.
So amazing, Claire. Like some of the insights that you've given us, really nice. I really enjoy having conversations like these, that are more on a meta level, because it's universal. It's like no matter how old this conversation gets, whatever you discuss, the breathing techniques, or the managing your emotions, or all that's something that stays relevant no matter when you listen to it, right? And it's always fascinating to hear of somebody's story and how they ended up in Australia the way they are, the work that they're doing. It's really fascinating to me. Just before I let you go, there's one question that I always end with for all my guests, right? So based on all of your experiences, and you've had some really fascinating experiences throughout your life, being grown up in the US and then moving back to Taiwan, having that, like, if viewing the whole spectrum of how a society can be, how rigid a society can be and how open a society can be, and then your relationship with your parents, going to Finland, experiencing that liberation, and then your experience in so many different countries, Finland, Singapore, Australia, and now working in a field that you're so passionate about, and being so close to, because the work that you're doing, you can't be good at it unless you're very close to your own self and you're very in tune with your own emotions, right?
Yes.
And you understand yourself. So based on all of that, throughout your life, what is the one nugget of truth? What is the one truth that life has taught you that you can pass on to people?
Oh, breathing is your body's love language. Really.
Okay.
Yes. So if I examine all that I have learned, all that I have taught to myself and to my clients, really breathing is the first thing that we look at. Yeah. And at first encounter it when I was doing my Pilates training, and then physiotherapy, and then breath work and all of that. And then once I start to understand my breathing, once I start to breathe properly, I noticed the change in my my energy, in my confidence, in my interactions with others. Because I guess I just have more oxygen in the way that really, when I really take the time to breathe. And it's almost like breathing is almost like a remote control for your body.
Sure.
You can turn on and you shut down. So then you kind of really, when I look at examining all the exercise I've taught, all the things I've learned, breathing is really the fundamental. That's your body's love language. You really got to breathe. Breathe more.
Yeah, breathe more. Remember to breathe.
Yes. As simple as that.
As simple as that. Simple but profound. Very, very nice. I think that's a very, very nice point to leave the audience on. If you guys enjoyed the conversation, I'll leave a description. I'll leave the links to Breathe Into Peace. I'll leave a link to Claire's LinkedIn profile as well. If anybody wants to get in touch with her, get more information regarding her workshops or the work that she's doing with the products that she's come up with the journal and the necklace, have a look in the description. The links should also be appearing on the screen right now. Also, if you have not done so already, here are all the links to all of our social media accounts. All of the highlights from this conversation and all of my past conversations are going to be up there, so do check that out. Until next time, this has been In The Gap. I have been Hussain, and I'll see you guys in the next one.